favorite scary movie.
Happy Halloween, everybody. We have made it to the end of ScaryMania 5. I hope you all are having a great Halloween whenever you're seeing this. I hope you all stay safe out there. If you're going to a Halloween party, I hope you have a great time. But let's close things out on a very successful ScaryMania by talking about eXistenZ, directed by David Cronenberg. And to join me on this, I had to get a Cronenberg expert. And so, friend of the channel, John Marr, pointed me in the direction of one of his good friends, one of the co-hosts over there at the Why We Love Horror Trivia League. It's Aaron J. Aaron, thank you for joining me.
How's it going, Ryan? Good to be here on the show. And I'm definitely a Cronenberg aficionado. To be an expert, I think you would have to be David Cronenberg himself and only David Cronenberg, to be honest with you, because we picked a weird one, which says a lot for him.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I say some filmmakers don't make normal films. Of the few ones that I have seen of his, he does not make normal movies, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But you don't walk into a David Cronenberg film and walk out being like, oh, that was totally plausible or something that might happen.
No, but I would say this is probably, other than maybe The Fly and a few others, one of his more realistic movies in some ways. Because it's just handling with virtual reality alternately, but in a way that only David Cronenberg could do with, the bioports and whatever those plugs are. The plug is that Allegra puts in that looks like a certain type. It's in a way only, David Cronenberg could do. And I've definitely heard the comparisons with this movie to one movie particularly, which I don't know if you've heard the comparisons to, so I don't want to say it right away. But if you haven't, we'll go into it maybe in a little bit.
Yeah, we will cross that bridge when we get there. But the basic
Yep.
story is that in the year 2030, there are a couple of game designers, like video game designers, but they don't make games like GTA 5 or Red Dead Redemption 2. They're virtual reality in pretty much the most strict definition possible, in that once you're playing it, you know, like you're in a game, but it's so close to reality that the lines tend to blur. One of the developers is named Allegra, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, and she is on the hunt from a rival developer a group of a group of people known as realists, or the group is called Realism. And they're not a big fan of VR, and so they want both of these groups want to take her out for differing reasons. And so it's up to her and a marketing intern, PR intern of sorts, played by Jude Law, in order to figure out who's hunting her specifically. And also, there's also something going on where her bipod, I believe it's called, is malfunctioning, and she has to figure out exactly what's going on in there. So, like we
Yeah,
were
bioport, I believe.
bioport, my bad. I was
Yep.
there was
It's all
something
good.
there
That's
was something
Yeah.
odd in the movie too, and
There's a lot of terminology in this movie, so I
a lot of
totally get
pods and ports. It
it.
tends to get a little confusing at points. It's crazy to
Definitely.
think we're almost 5 years away from 2030.
Yeah, I mean, he's still a little ahead of the game with regards to the video game kind of some of the video game aspects, and then other of which I feel like he's kind of right on the mark, so to speak.
It's
So
kind of like it's kind of like seeing something like I, Robot, the Will Smith movie, where it's like, oh, we were not even close to that. But then there are other developments that are like, okay, this movie kind of predicted the future. And it's like there's no in between. It's not like a near miss or a near hit. It's like a, man, that's so laughable. What are you doing? Or,
yeah,
wow, that's actually, we're almost heading in that direction.
right. And I feel like with this movie, that's kind of one of the advantages and disadvantages of it because there's, Black Mirror episodes that kind of handle this at this point. There's so many sci-fi movies that have worked or half worked or like handling similar themes. And then, there's like I feel like that is kind of works against this movie because I don't think David Cronenberg at all as a filmmaker is ever trying to like predict the future with his movies. I just think they happen to often become prophetic as time goes on. And it's kind of scary sometimes when you're like, oh, this movie was made 50 years ago or 40 some odd years ago, and it's like feels like it could be made. That's always like one of the things when we watch older great movies that are timeless in some ways, how scary those kind of messages are can be. And with this movie, like I feel like that sometimes gets held against it because of the VR angle of it. But I feel that the VR angle is just again a tool, so to speak, used to describe these people going into another world to be something they're not. And that's ultimately what this movie is about with eXistenZ and then the transcendence of the movie at the end of it. Like that's ultimately what it is about. And there's just a lot of complicated layers with the realism group and all that. And that group is within the video game world. And then that's a sign of like somebody from that transcendence group at the end who has like radical thing. And it's just like, and you don't even know at the end are the final stinger of the movie. Like that's the whole idea of it. And it's like we could be in a simulation right now. It's like a little play on it's David Cronenberg's simulation theory, ultimately, is just like what this movie I've come to find it as.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. We were talking off air, and I was telling you I'm not entirely sure what to make of what Cronenberg was exactly going for, but when you were talking about it, I'm like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. And
Mhm.
the biggest compliment that I can give to the movie is that I love the effects. I love seeing like just how practical everything is. And I was watching a lot of the tech and a lot of how the phone that Jude Law's character uses that gets thrown out the car window almost as soon as he starts using it. It
Yep.
feels real. And I was just saying to myself, this would be all CGI today. But no, someone built that. And you
Yeah.
actually, it's Cronenberg, so it's body horror. So there's a lot of, not, it's honestly one of the more tame ones because some of Cronenberg's stuff, yeesh, like it gets crazy. Aaron,
Yeah.
you would know. But
Absolutely.
this is honestly one of the more ones where it's definitely present, the body horror, but it doesn't take over everything.
Not at all. And I mean, I do think that, it's used effectively when it is used to kind of symbolize what it is, which is that like the people in this case are like creating the prison or the world that they're going into in these video games. Well, it's like that's kind of like the big difference from, can I say the movie that this movie always gets compared to now?
It's either another Cronenberg film or Inception.
No, well, Inception's a great one with the ending, especially, but it's this movie's always called, I at least in my discussions, it seems always to be brought up as Weird Matrix. And
Oh.
because it came out the same year as The Matrix, this
Yeah.
movie, which I don't really agree because it's really the inverse of The Matrix for me, because The Matrix is about the prison of The Matrix and people being trapped in that prison, trying to break free of that prison. While with eXistenZ, it's about people creating the prison that they're in and wanting to be in there. So there's similarities, but I think they're very, very different. And I think it's so fascinating that these two movies came out the same year. It's like a way cooler version of Armageddon Deep Impact, in my opinion, with all due respect to those movies. But like, it's just with regards to the effects, like the bone gun to me, the entire Chinese restaurant scene to me, that's just like that I just love that how it's so unusual, but it works within the movie and it continues to come back throughout the movie. Um, and just so many great actors and coming in and out with this movie. Gas, obviously, Willem Dafoe, Ian Holm in this movie. I mean, there, and I think Jude Law does a great job in his turn towards the end. I know I didn't expect it at all. So, and then Christopher Eccleston, shout out to all leftover fans there too, starting out the movie with the head of the test group, which is great. Sarah Polly. It's just I really grow to appreciate this movie more and more each time I watch it. To be honest, it is unusual, but the unusual pieces, once you find how to fit them for they they work better and better. It's almost like that gun. You look at the piece of that gun, and it's just like all these weird. It's like, how is this going to come together? These teeth and all that, and it comes together. And it's like one of the best weapons in a movie I can think of now. It's like that bone gun. It's just it fits, and that's how that movie works for me. If that makes sense.
No, I understand what you're saying. There's a lot to unpack there, but I love that bone gun so much. At first, when I saw it in that opening scene where Allegra's doing her presentation and one of the realism terrorists shoots her in the shoulder with it, I was thinking to myself, what gun is he firing? And then sure enough, it's made of bones and the bullets
Yeah,
are teeth, which is just
right.
a crazy detail and so crazy that Allegra's even like, there's a cavity in this one. I'm like, wow, that's a crazy attention to detail. That would never fly today.
Yep. It's just so Cronenberg too. It's just like, yes,
But the point,
the body is attacking the body within this machine.
exactly. But the point you brought up about this being compared to The Matrix, I didn't catch it in the moment when you brought it up. I'm like, that totally makes sense. 1999 had a lot of movies like, it's a weird comparison, I know, but like Matrix, Office Space, Fight Club. I'd throw this in there too, where it's like existentialism was like the rule of the day almost. And there was a lot of movies saying like, what are we even like doing here? Is there even a purpose? And so I would happily lump eXistenZ in there as well. It's going to take me a long time to figure out what all's going on with this, but I honestly don't mind. There's a lot going on here, and I think all of it is pretty solid. And the Chinese restaurant scene, I thought that was great too. Jude Law slowly putting the gun together and being like, "Oh, I'm the one," but then is like, "Oh, maybe he's not," and then like the movie just continually throwing you off, and then
Then going to that next scene with the toads, like putting together the pods and
yeah,
like you're not in you're are you I have you are you a video game player? Have you played video games?
I play like
No?
one game a year.
Okay. So like you played enough to maybe recognize some of the mechanics that like come up with like NPCs and whatnot in this.
Yeah.
So it's like where he's like getting his next mission and it's just like it's done in a way where like if you're familiar with games, like you can understand what's going on, but if you're not, it's going to be maybe too peculiar at times. It's going to maybe be like, okay, what we're taking out because there's like times where like we're continuing, we're dying and going back to the save point, like, and it's just when they're like back and restarting at points, like coming out of, the pausing, all that, like some of it, you know, and it all like kind of makes a little more sense, I think, as a game player myself. I feel like it just worked a little bit. It felt very authentic to me. It felt like often when games are described or game mechanics are described in movies, it's very clunky. And here I just feel like David Cronenberg definitely had to have been a gamer back in '99. That's all. Like it was just the mechanics are too fluid within the story of this to work to not be just like a writer or a director who learned about video games and then try to apply it to the movie.
Yeah,
So, but I
it's
just
not like
again like yeah,
it's not
go
like a
ahead.
Steve Buscemi situation. It's like, how do you do, fellow kids? It's like he could pull off casually the Jude Law character saying, "Existence pause," and then it's like it actually paused and it felt
Mhm.
natural.
Yeah, exactly. It worked. And it's, being a David Cronenberg expert, the reason I love David Cronenberg is his movies are all authentic. I mean, The Brood, he wrote as he was going through his divorce about divorce. And that movie is about as mean and as nasty of a divorce movie as you're ever going to watch. But what it is it's honest, it's real, and it's why it continues to be able to be watched to this day. And like, over and over, the feelings dealt with in The Fly. That's just his real feeling. The feelings dealt with Crimes of the Future, his last movie to come out. The Shrouds after is a movie he wrote after he lost his wife about the afterlife. You think that movie's not going to be gut wrenching when that comes? It's just like he writes about where he's at when he's there, and that's why his movies, to me, are all great, even if they don't work for me individually, because they're they're from his truth. Like I don't know how to explain that any other way. It's just like this movie I don't think is an exception. It feels like Videodrome, but applied to video games and then taken to kind of a different place, but still having similar themes along the way of discussing how violence impacts violent content and it's the same, arguments we're still having to this day. And then with the realism group being within the game, that just like demonstrating like just how that continues to be a part of the struggle, no matter what realm this is in. And that's just kind of a fascinating kind of debate to have within there. And then you don't know when the game ends and when real life begins. And that's just another, and last thing, I'm sorry to get on a rant here, but with when you said the 1999 thing, and um, it just kind of clicked something with me. I was born in '89, so I was about 9, 10 years old. I remember what it was like in 1999, '98 when this movie was getting ready to come out. There's a little thing called Y2K around the corner, and Y2K was supposed to just end the world, and we really believe that. And so it's kind of similar to like when people were in COVID and getting out of COVID, they're like starting to think, what am I doing with my life? And everybody started kind of leaving their partners and leaving their jobs and like making their radical changes. They're like, time is limited and I need to think. We kind of had that same thing in 1998, 99. So 99 had the existential movies. I feel like 2024 has had a ton of those as well. We got the I Saw the TV Glows. We've got the Perfect Days with Vince Vender. We've got like a ton of them on every side of the coin. So that's a really good point from you about the 99 and the existential and why that would be going on is because we thought the world was over in Y2K, man. We thought we were going back to the Stone Age. Like computers were going to explode in front of us when they went to the 2000 thing. It was over. Like, so, it's just, I don't know, a little interesting why 99 had all of those kind of existential feels, maybe. End of rant. Sorry, everybody.
No, no, no. That was honestly like I was vibing with you. I'm like, yeah, he's onto something with this. I like
Yeah,
it.
this is the beauty of a conversation with Cronenberg. You never know what will come up.
I'll be the first to admit, I remember when I first watched Videodrome and I wasn't a fan. I'll be the first to admit I wasn't crazy about it.
Okay.
I didn't get it. But as I've thought about it, I want to watch it again because I feel like what you were talking about, I'm like, I think I may have definitively missed something with it. And I'm more than open to like movies that I didn't get the first time. I'm open to watching it again. Maybe I missed something. And I feel like Videodrome's definitely the one of the ones that I've watched fairly recently. And by fairly recently, I mean like the past couple years where I'm like, what are we even doing here? Like the gun's like coming out of his hand. Like, what are we all even talking about here? But then I'm like, okay, maybe I did miss something with that. So I feel like that's one that I want to revisit, and I feel like I will one day.
I mean, and I think good for you. Like the best way to go into, a movie, regardless, is open-minded. And as a, lover of Cronenberg, I would say over an expert of Cronenberg, um, I would say couldn't be a better way to go into his movies than that way. And not all his movies work for me either. And, I've had to revisit plenty of them. This one included. The first time I saw this movie, and I love the beauty of Letterboxd because I log every movie on there, and I've been doing it since I think 2016 at this point. So it's quite an archive for me, or 2018 maybe. But either way, like it's several years now, and I look at my first review of it. I gave it 3.5 stars, which is pretty low for me. I'm a pretty generous grader. Yeah, a lot of those things these didn't click for me on my first watch. This is my sixth, maybe seventh watch at this point, at least, and I've had a dozen conversations with the movie as well. So it's taken me still this long in this conversation, based on what you've said, I've been able to kind of form even more thoughts kind of with regards to it. So it's ever evolving. It's one of the many reasons I love his work is you can always pick up new things talking with other people about it.
Yeah, to put the period at the end of the sentence here, eXistenZ, once it's over, your immediate reaction is going to be, what? But then dig a little deeper. It's gonna be a little bit, but if you turn it over in your head and you really think about it, it's gonna bear fruit. The ideas are going to stick with you. It's like a diesel truck. It takes a second to get going, but when it does get going, it's going to go a long time. At the end of the day, I'm glad Cronenberg got to make this because I think in the hands of a lesser director, it would have been just a generic, like it would have been something not as thought-provoking. I think it would have been
Mhm.
fine, but it wouldn't nearly have been this.
Yes. Yeah, no, I agree. This is a movie that I feel like people get really lucky when they get to revisit when they kind of do their Cronenberg watches, which often happen. Is this is one that I feel slides under the radar. Videodrome comes up, Fly comes up, Dead Ringers even comes up. I love all of those movies a lot, but I think this movie and The Brood particularly are kind of two of his really, really brilliant personal pieces that don't get brought up a lot. And when you bring them all of a sudden you're like, wow, like there's aspects of this feel like a Cronenberg movie, but like in a good way, this doesn't even feel like a Cronenberg movie, but it still is with the types of conversations, the themes that are brought up, and the similarities, even to other movies as we discussed. So yeah.
Well, I pass it off to all of you. What if you have seen eXistenZ, what did you think about it? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. And Aaron, thank you so much for joining me on this. You're closing out ScaryMania 5 with me, and I got the right guy to do it, so I appreciate it. You're over at Why We Love Horror Trivia League with John. You're killing it over there. I should know. I'm also over there too, so I'm slightly biased. But what have you guys got coming up?
Yeah, we do have the Trivia League, but also myself, John Marr, who runs the channel, and my wife, Abby Brooks. We all do the Why We Love Horror flagship show every Thursday. It premieres at 8 p.m. We cover the previous week's movies, so we've been covering, some good movies lately. We covered Smile 2 recently. We're covering Your Love this week, the Melissa Barrera comedy horror movie that came out this past Friday. So every week we cover a new movie there. So other than that, yeah, I'm always writing horror over with Why We Love Horror as well. So join us, and yeah, thank you very much for having me on, Ryan. It was a pleasure to talk some Cronenberg with you, and yeah, really look forward to talking with you soon. Again, so thank you everybody out there for listening to my rambles. I'm sure this is a little more of a rant than usual, but that's what you get with Aaron. So, it is what it is.
Well, I'll put the channel link in the description. Go subscribe over there. Shout out to Abby. I'm going to be playing her and Jake Meltzer very soon. So,
Gonna be awesome game. Can't wait for that.
but I want to take a moment before I sign off to say thank you to all of you who have checked out Scary Mania 5. This series is always a labor of love for me. Doing daily uploads is not easy, but it is a lot of fun. Digging into the 90s, the whole decade of the 90s, I only got 31 movies. I got like two or three from each year of the 90s. But I loved the movies I picked this time. There were some bad ones, but there were a lot of good ones too. And so I want to thank everyone I collaborated with. I want to thank the returning ones and the new ones, and I want to thank all of you for watching. It really it really makes my day to know that you guys watched and have been liking the videos. And so it makes me happy. So I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. Scary Mania 6 is definitely happening, and that's all you need to know. I'll keep you all in the loop on that one. But for Aaron J and for everyone else I've worked with this month, my name is Ryan Cam. Boys and ghouls, have a happy Halloween.